Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to continue working on rebuilding the Mercruiser 120, the GM 153 engine. Today we're going to be installing the head gasket, the rocker arms, the push rods, and lifters. So we can get that all together, and we're getting closer to every time we're getting closer to being it done. So thank you very much for liking and subscribing, following along. And here you go, and I'll see you guys at the end. The top of the block is cleaned up. I started installing ARP racing studs on for the head, so we can put the head on. So I got about halfway, so I thought how I install one of them. And I'm installing ARP studs just because I like them. And here's the part number here. It is 131-4001. It's for a Chevy 4-cylinder hex head stud kit. And so it's for a Chevy 153. So it comes with your studs here, which you have a coarse thread on the bottom that goes into your block, then a fine thread at the top for your the new nuts that you're going to be using. So they give you the nuts here, washer, and assembly lube grease. And I don't think it came with instructions, but the instructions were online. It tells you what to torque them to at the final spec. So again, they're not sponsored, of course. I don't have any sponsors. So ARP, I always use them on bolt connection for heads. Because let me show you the bolt. So here's one of the bolts right here. So it's usually a bolt 1, but I like to use studs instead of bolts going into blocks. That's just a personal preference. It's all mine. That's my own opinion, whatever. But let me know what you think down in the comments. And also, in these Chevy engines, all these go right into the water jacket, right into the cooling. So these all need to be with some type of sealant on there. So what I got was while I ordered the studs, I also ordered some ARP thread sealant, because all these all go into the water jacket. So every single one of these could be a leak point with a bolt, which it wasn't leaking before, but still you got all this goop, and then you got to torque it down. And I didn't like that at all. So I'm glad that I can seal them up. I can turn them in all the way down until they stop, and they'll be fully threaded, and then they'll have a nice gob of goop on them or whatever. So I'll show you how I'm doing the one. What I'm doing is I'm taking a little gob of the goop, put it into the hole. Just putting some of it down inside there, not a whole lot. And take the stud and kind of squeeze. This stuff is called, it has PTFE in it, so it's always soft and it always stakes, it never really hardens up. So it's good to have it on threads and everything like that. So kind of like your plumbing at home. Whenever you use this on stuff on threads, and when you're plumbing, same stuff. But not the same. I would not suggest using that. But to each their own, I guess. But I figured this was only a few bucks from Summit. I had to order some other stuff, so I just added this onto it. So you get it started into the hole. And these all have an Allen head at the top of them to turn them in. Then I have a certain height that I want to have the stud sticking out. So I make sure I don't go any deeper than that. Then that one's in. And all you do is you take off and you clean the extra stuff around the edge of the stud. What I've been doing is just dipping this in a little bit. I get the big glob off, and then I take a little piece with some lacquer thinner on it, and I clean up all around it. And there you go. Now we got a stud in there. So then next time if we have some type of head gasket problem, we have to take the head off or anything like that, it won't disrupt any of these holes down in here with the goop or anything while they're in there. So and then if I have to change the head gasket, I can change it, or if there's something goes wrong, I need to take it apart, I can just pull the head back off and not have to worry about getting a leak again down through here. So these are reusable and everything. So I don't think the original ones were stretch bolts, but because they just had a torque spec to them, so I don't think they were stretch bolts or anything. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to put the last 4 in, and I'll be back. So you got overhead studs in. I cleaned up around all of them to make sure it was nice and clean around them. So we got our head gasket. I'm putting on a Felpro. Well, it was part of the kit that I bought, but part 17,000. You can see that. Okay, so it only goes on one way because when you look at it, you have your coolant holes here, your coolant holes here. And if you flip it over this way, or this way, or this way, it doesn't fit on there. Like, it won't fit on like this. See your holes and over here? So it goes like this. Plus the name is also pointing up. You got your coolant holes over there. So it only goes on one way. Then there's locating studs over here. Not studs, but dowels. Kind of pushes over top of that. Then one on that side. So now we got our head gasket on. It stays straight because of the dowels. It kind of covers up the push rod tubes a little bit where the push rods come through, but I think these are just drains for the oil when the head comes down. Like, this is a coolant one. These little guys here are coolant in the middle, and then the big one here, it goes over into the head. So here is the head. I cleaned it all up, and like I did before, I lapped the valves. I lapped the valves and all that kind of stuff and cleaned that up. So we're ready to go, and I did a final wipe of this as well. So let's install it on there. Okay, you go to put your head on, make sure that everything's in the right direction. Oh, and you pick it up in the right direction. When you grab your head, make sure it's in the right direction. I have all the gobbledygook, which is the assembly, the ARP stuff that comes with it, the torque assembly for the bolts. And once I started putting the goop on there, it's like black, it's almost like a graphite type of grease. So once I started doing it, my hands were so covered I couldn't start the camera. So what I did is I just gooped up both sides of the washer. I gooped up the threads, and I gooped up the inside and the surface of the bolt, of the nut there. So we're just going to run them in with a drill for now because we're going to torque them all down. So we'll start from the center. There's actually more studs sticking out of the top than I wanted. More, because I wanted them to actually go in further, but they wouldn't go in any further. So I just kind of snugged them down where they were. Jeez, man. Okay, you can see a lot more studs sticking out of the top than I wanted. I don't think it's gonna enter, like, be in the way of the valve cover, but I have a feeling it's gonna tap the edge of these bolts here, the edge of the head of the nut or whatever right here. I have a feeling it's gonna tap onto that. But other than that, I think it's gonna clear everything. Let's do a quick little test fit here. This still needs a cleaning. Do a quick test fit here. Yeah, just like I thought. It's going to clear these ones here, but this one here and this one, the four corners, it looks like it's going to have to be carved a little bit. Need a little notch put in the valve cover there. So that's a word of warning to you if you end up doing this. Okay, so let me get the torque wrench and do the first round here. Okay, so I'm at the final step for the final torque, and you should go around in a circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we'll start, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll go here. This is the final torque, which is what ARP suggests. So it's a very high number. You see, it's pretty difficult, and I'm pretty much blocking the camera, but you get the gist of it. Just torque them down. I'll be back. Next thing we're going to be doing is installing our lifters and our rocker arms and the push rods. So we're reusing the same rocker arms, everything. They're in order. This is 4, 3, 2, 1, blah, blah. So these are all in order here. Then these are the push rods. They're all in order as well. They're all cleaned up, and these have all been cleaned up. So what we're doing is we're going to put in some new lifters because of the new cam, and the lifters need to be broken in together. So there's the part number 864-8 for Pontiac 151, which is a Chevy. It's all the same engines. So comp cam, and we got a comp lifters. They're actually hydraulic lifters, but they're flat tappet hydraulic lifters. So after reading the full instructions, which are very in-depth, I'm just going to give you an overview of it. Whenever you do get them, make sure you read the instructions. So okay, so what we did is they suggested to put it in an oil bath. So I found a peanut butter jar, which was the perfect size for them all 8 of them to get in there. So they've been in there for about a week or so as I've been building the engine. So I think they should be good lubed, all lubed up and everything. They've been sitting in oil. But they also said, even though they're hydraulic, don't pump them up. So we're not going to pump them up or anything. But they did say put them into an oil bath. So they're in there all clean and everything. So I think we're about ready. So we're going to install the lifters, and then we'll do the push rods and then the rockers. So before I start installing everything, I made a mark on the timing gear right here and right here, 180 degrees apart, and then there's a marks on here. So I know that we're set at number 1. We're still at top dead center of number 1 when number 1 is firing. So we know we're in this position when we're at number 1. So we rotate this, it'll bring this end down to here, and then we can set the next valves, and then set the next valves, and so on and so on. So when it comes back around, I'm going to then put a mark on the other side over here. So then we can set our valves and everything. So the interesting thing I wanted to show you is that when you have your lifters and you install your lifters and they're breaking into each other, they're actually, as the cam goes around this way, it pushes that at up and down, oh geez, I can't talk. The lifter up and down, it's also spinning the lifter as it's going around. So when you look down in the hole, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you can see the cam lobe right here. They're actually off center of the holes. I don't know if that's going to focus or not. You can kind of see there at all. They're actually off center of the hole. So whenever the lifter's sitting in there and the cam's going up and down, it's actually spinning the lifter around as it's going. So that's why whenever you do this, you have to break in the cam and the lifter all together at the same time. And hopefully they all spin with no binding or anything like that, which I don't think it's going to happen because it's pretty clean in there. But we'll see how it is when we slide them in. All right, so we got our jar of lifters here. And also I put assembly grease on the cam itself, on the lobes. So that should be all ready to go. You'll take one of these. If I can get it out. Holy moly. Slippery suckers. There we go. Drain that off a little bit. Okay, so we got it. I tried to put a little grease on there, but it's not going to happen. It's just, I put a little dab on there, and that should be good enough. And we got oil on the outside to go into the bore, but we'll put some assembly lube on there just to help it keep its lubricant all around. Probably way too much oil altogether. So let's drop that in. There you go. That slid in there pretty smooth. And we'll put some lube here on the sides here. Okay, got all the lifters in there. So to do the push rods. And these are the rockers that are very common in Chevy engines. They have this little pivot ball right here that this pivots on. And then the lock nut that holds it in place so as you adjust them and all. I guess it kind of sits on that. It doesn't actually go down the whole way. It just kind of sits on here and here and swivels on that ball since their pressure holds them down. So put a little lube on there. Lube onto the bottom. Yeah, they just kind of like float there with that ball. With this ball piece here, kind of holds it in place. It kind of floats up above. If you can see it, there's a gap there. Some assembly lube on here because they'll be dry whenever it goes to start. There you go. So I did number 1, preload for the hydraulic lifters. So what I did is, I'll show you on the next one, but I just wanted to make sure I got this right, and I checked and checked. So the Pro Comp instructions, and also the Mercruiser instructions, they say tighten down this bolt, your rocker bolt here, until you have no play up and down in your rockers. You go up and down until you have here, so it's 0 lash at that point. So what you do then is, according to Pro Comp, you set your wrench and do a half a turn, and then it'll preload the hydraulic lifters. Since these are Pro Comp, follow their instructions, where the Mercruiser one, they want you to do the same procedure, wiggle it up and down until you have 0 lash, but they wanted you to do a full turn on their lifters. So I'm going to follow the Pro Comp instructions for it instead of the Mercruiser, because then it also said in here that there should be a 30 thousandths move in this. Like, it should be pressed down by 30 thousandths, and I measured it, and it's roughly about 34 thousandths, and it has a plus or minus 10 thousandths. So for the Pro Comps, so I went down 30. So it actually went with a half a turn. With the preload, it actually went down like 32 thousandths, 35 thousandths. So we're within spec according to the Comp Cam instructions. So I'm going to rotate the engine to the next piston that's going to be firing, and then we'll set that lash on that one. Okay, so we did number 1. I rotated the engine around 180 degrees on the crank, not on the cam. I was getting confused. I still need to figure out how an engine works. So I rotated this 180 degrees. So now, according to a screwdriver also, I got number 3 at the top dead center. So we're setting this one. So right now, if you could see, it moves up and down quite a bit here. So we'll tighten this down until we get no more play. Up and down play. There you go. So we have no up and down play, and we're still in the lifter, and we're still in the rocker arm, so we're good there. Let me double check, make sure I'm there. Yeah, you got up and down. Okay, so we have no lash up and down. Then I'll set the wrench. What I'm doing is I'm kind of setting it in line with the rocker arm itself, and then I just take it and turn it half a turn until it's lined back up with the rocker arm again this way. So then that's our half turn, and we got our preload on there. So let's do the next one. Okay, so now we got the 0 there. Let me double check, make sure I'm set. Okay. Okay, so there we are, red 0. Up and down lift. We'll set the wrench. So we're lined up with the rocker. We'll do our half turn. There you go. Preload is done for number 3. So we got number 1 and number 3 done. So I'm going to continue, rotate it 180 degrees. And we got a firing order of 1, 3, 4, and then 2. So these ones should be the next one. I can already see that the exhaust one is moving open, moving up to move this one open, the exhaust port. So we're looking at number 4 next. So I'm going to do number 4, number 2, and I'll be back. Okay, so we got our valves done. They're set. So in order to get the oil pan on and the oil pump, I haven't done that yet. I got to put the timing cover on. So I put goop on both sides, aviation sealant on both sides of the gasket. And I also put in a new gasket here. New end gaskets. Whatchamacallit gasket anyways. Whatever it's called. So I put a lot of goop on this because this is has an oiler in there. And it's going to be spraying oil the whole time the engine's running. This whole thing's going to be filled with oil. So I wanted to get a lot of goop on there. So hopefully it doesn't leak while it's running. Because you imagine if it's spraying oil in there and the gears and everything, it's going to be spraying around in there the whole time. One guy on YouTube that was rebuilding an inline 6, which is the same engine as this, just has 2 more cylinders on it. And he actually put in a spacer in here so to keep this completely straight so it doesn't leak. But I don't know if we're going to need to do that, but I'll see if I can eyeball it here. Get yourself a 7/16. Start tightening everything down. Let me see. That looks like it's pretty much straight right there. The seal right here, it looks kind of straight right there, so that's where I'm going to leave it. Okay, so timing cover's on. So next thing, figured while I'm here I might as well put that on too and be done with the front end here. It's funny because it has no nut. It's just pressed on by hammering it on, and I had to use a puller to get it off. It was pretty tight to get off of there. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys stayed to the end. Thank you for following along. The next thing will probably be like the oil pump and everything else. We got a bunch of smaller stuff to put on next. So I'll catch you in the next one. Remember to stay awesome because you are awesome. Bye-bye.